All right. Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dig in. What are we exploring today?
Well, we're tackling something that I think can really boost anyone's communication skills. It's all about those common English expressions we hear all the time. But we're not just going to, list them out. We're going to look at where they came from and really get a feel for how to use them effectively.
I love that. These expressions are so fascinating, right? It's like each one has a story to tell.
Totally. It's like they're little windows into history and culture.
Yeah.
Okay, so to get started, I pulled 10 expressions from actually a bunch of sources like articles, blogs, even a couple of historical language books.
That sounds like a great mix. I'm ready when you are.
Okay, let's kick things off with a classic, one that I bet everyone listening has felt at some point. Burning the midnight oil.
Hmm.
Picture this. You're up late, got to finish that project, the deadline's looming.
Coffee's brewing, maybe a little too much caffeine. Been there.
Yeah, exactly. But have you ever thought about, where that expression came from?
Well, it's actually pretty literal. Back before electricity was a thing, people used oil lamps to light their homes, right? So if you were burning oil late into the night, it meant you were working really hard.
Wow, I never really connected those dots. It's kind of cool to think about how the meaning has stayed the same, even though the technology's changed.
Yeah, it really speaks to that feeling of dedication and pushing yourself to get things done.
Totally. One of the articles I was reading used burning the midnight oil to describe these entrepreneurs who are working around the clock to launch their new business.
That makes sense. They were probably fueled by passion and that drive to succeed.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. How about the ball is in your court? That one always makes me think about, the tennis match or something.
Absolutely. It's that feeling of, the pressure's on, everyone's watching, waiting to see what you'll do next.
It's like that moment of truth where you have to make a decision, no more stalling. Have you ever, felt that in a negotiation or something?
Oh, for sure. I was actually reading this case study about a business deal, and they used that expression, the ball is in your court, to describe how one company made an offer, and then it was up to the other company to either accept it or come back with a counterproposal.
That's a perfect example. It's like that back and forth, that sense of strategy. Okay, so moving on to something a little more social. Break the ice.
Ooh, I love this one. It's so evocative.
Yeah, it totally captures that awkward feeling when you're in a new group and everyone's kind of hesitant to talk.
Like at a party or maybe the first day of class, you can just feel that tension in the air.
Right. But then someone cracks a joke or tells a funny story, and suddenly everyone starts to relax.
It's amazing how a well-placed comment can totally shift the energy in a room. It's like you're literally breaking through that barrier of unfamiliarity.
I saw that in one of the blog posts I was reading. Someone was talking about their experience at a networking event and how someone broke the ice by asking everyone to share their favorite travel destination.
That's a great icebreaker. It's personal, it gets people talking, and it probably sparks some interesting conversations.
Totally. Okay, so how about a blessing in disguise? Have you ever had something happen that seemed bad at first, but then it turned out to be a good thing?
Oh, absolutely. I remember missing a train once, and I was so frustrated. But then the next train was delayed, and I ended up meeting someone who became a really close friend.
Wow, that's awesome. It really makes you wonder how many good things we miss out on
Yeah.
because we get so focused on the initial disappointment.
It's a good reminder to keep an open mind and look for the silver lining, even when things don't go as planned. Okay, ready for a few more. Let's talk about hit the nail on the head.
Ooh, that one always makes me think about, solving a puzzle or something.
Yeah, it's that satisfying feeling when you finally figure something out, like you've been working on a problem and then all of a sudden the solution clicks into place.
It's like that moment when you're studying for a test and you finally understand a difficult concept.
Precisely. It's that feeling of accuracy and precision, like you've nailed it perfectly. And speaking of nailing it, how about on cloud nine?
Oh, pure happiness. Like when you achieve a goal you've been working towards for ages.
Or maybe when you're spending time with loved ones and just feeling totally content and joyful.
Totally. It's like you're floating above all the stress and worries of everyday life. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have under the weather. Ever felt that way?
More times than I care to admit. It's funny because that expression has a nautical origin.
Really? Tell me more.
Yeah, apparently sailors who are feeling seasick would go below deck, literally under the weather, to try to feel better.
That makes so much sense. It's like they were seeking shelter from the elements.
Exactly. It's like our bodies are little ships navigating the seas of life.
I love that. Okay, let's see. How about spill the beans? Come on, I gotta ask, are you good at keeping secrets?
I try my best, but sometimes a juicy story is just too good to keep to myself. What about you? Oh, I'm the worst. I always end up spilling the beans, especially if it's something exciting. It's like I can't help myself.
We've all been there. It's that moment when the words just tumble out and you can't take them back.
And sometimes when we get a little too enthusiastic, we end up biting off more than we can chew. Know that feeling.
All too well. Like when you volunteer for too many projects or
Hmm.
you make a promise you can't keep.
Yeah, it's all about finding that balance between pushing ourselves and knowing our limits.
And learning to say no when necessary.
Exactly. Okay, last one, cut corners. This one's interesting because it can be, both good and bad.
Definitely. Sometimes it's about finding creative solutions, but other times it means sacrificing quality or even ethics.
Hmm.
It really depends on the context.
Right. Like in one of the articles I read, they were talking about how some companies cut corners on safety regulations to save money, and it ended up having really negative consequences. Yeah, that's a perfect example of when cutting corners can lead to serious problems. It's all about making sure you're not compromising your values or putting others at risk.
Totally agree. Well, there you have it, folks. We just explored 10 common English expressions, delving into their origins and looking at how they're used in everyday life.
These expressions are more than just words, right? They're like these little nuggets of wisdom that have been passed down through generations.
Exactly. And by understanding them better, we can use them to add color and depth to our own communication.
And remember, language is constantly evolving. So keep paying attention to the words and expressions you hear around you. You never know what gems you might discover.
Great advice. So we'd love to hear from you. What are some of your favorite expressions or maybe one that you've always wondered about? Let us know. Until next time.